Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome once again. Warm welcome from Institute for Financial Literacy for another session of our Ask Me Anything. Today's topic is very, very interesting because we're going to talk about MoneySense for your child, right? But before that, some disclaimer, right? This webinar aims to help you in evaluating information. What kind of information? Money matter information, right? Does not involve any form of financial advice, right? So if we have to mention any names or companies, it's purely to illustrate the financial concept that we're sharing with you today. So do approach a licensed financial advisor should you have any queries or decision that before you make any decision in terms of any investment. Yes. All right, great. Fantastic. So this session will start off with a very short sharing on what is MoneySense for your children before we go into the highlight, which is the questions and answer sessions, right? So to start off with, let me just share with you 3 questions. Now, we all have our own growing up story. Am I right to say that? Right, growing up story may involve how we perceive money. Like the very first time when we realized that mommy, daddy took the piece of paper or the coin out from the pocket, could exchange for our ice cream or even our candies. And that is perhaps the first time that we encounter with money. And over time, as we learn from our mistakes and grow with our habit that we built up, right, we realize the importance of learning about money ever since young until adulthood, because it's going to last us a long, long time. Now, as a parent, you and me, or some of us who are planning to be parents soon, or some of us are taking younger siblings or children that you're taking care of, you'll probably be asking yourself, right, so how am I going to start them off on the journey of financial literacy? That's a very, very good question. Why? Because you'll probably be asking, is financial literacy an important life skill? Do we need our child to learn, right, by observing and learning from how we behave towards money? And can we then inculcate good financial habit in our children at a very young age? But before I deep dive into this session, right, let's do a poll. I'd like to hear your opinion on this, right? I'm going to flash a poll into the Facebook, right? So essentially the question goes like this. Do you think it is important to teach financial education for your children? 3 choices. A, to improve their life as it is a life skill. B, to go from survival to thriving, right? And finally, C, to enable them to meet their financial goals. So I'll just pause a moment here for you to ponder over the questions and select your response. Yes, right. And very importantly, just meanwhile, right, as you ponder over this, let me just share with you some of the findings by National Financial Educators Council, which is a US-based establishment, which they talk about the importance of letting children be exposed to financial matters, literacy, as young as possible so that they can then grow over time to develop a certain habits or certain outlook. Oh, yes, I see the response now. Very good. Now, A, 83% says selected A, right? It's a life skill. B, 6% and C, 11%. Personally, I struggle with choosing one of them. Why? Because I think that all of them are relatively correlated, right? And they're all equally important. Am I right? So thank you very much for your selection. Let's look at the way how we approach financial literacy for children. Some of us, even though we see the importance of doing so, tend to think, kids don't need to know about money because they are too young. Too heavy a topic, it's so something that you'll probably find very hard to digest. But as the argument goes, is that true, right? So why do we then need to start off the financial journey for the child as early as possible? Now imagine you now have a newborn baby, right? Into a few months' time, they learn to smile at you, but study shows that the smiling is actually mirroring us. Right, it's not exactly smiling. So they realize that they are like a sponge, starting to absorb everything around them, including mommy and daddy's interaction. So therefore, it is very, very important to help them to then be able to take in the good value, the proper approach to money management, so that they be able to then last them through their lifetime, that contribute to their management of money, right? When they learn about financial literacy at an early age, so the finding goes, right? Then they become less impressionable. The attitude of money held by the adults around them. And here we don't talk about just parents, but the people around. If you and me as a parent do not want to teach the kids about money, guess what? They have to learn from somewhere, perhaps through social media, perhaps from YouTube or friends, So let's look at the different category of age group and see what are the needful that need to be focused on at the different stage of their life. Let's start with preschool, okay? Now, preschool, we are talking about 3 to 6 years old. Right over here, it is very, very important to teach about a priority to be able to identify what is needs versus wants. Now, can I suggest that at this age is a bit difficult because when I bring my kid out, I have a daughter coming to 7 years old. So when we go shopping and when we ask, she wanted to buy some toys, and then what will happen? I said, no, you don't need that. You have lots of toys at home. She will respond to me, but I need. Whatever I've said, a long explanation, she will say, but I need, but I want. So it's very hard for them to grasp the idea of needs and wants. And can I suggest that at this juncture, high supervision is necessary so as to help them to build the habit of identifying needs and wants. Saving up is also one of the aspects. Like, for example, if I give them a candy and say that this candy, right, just bought for you is going to last you for 1 week. Now, this 1 week, if you eat everything today, the next 6 days, you're going to be deprived of the enjoyment, am I right? So what we do, teach them about, hey, no, you don't consume everything. You probably save up certain amounts so that every day you have some delights. So that's one way to teach children at this age, 3 to 6 years old, about saving and also high supervision in terms of needs and wants. Now, moving on, building on the same premise, right? Let's look at primary school. Primary school is a place, exciting place, where it's a whole new world to the child when they started in the primary school. And why? Because they have to buy their own food. They have to do a lot of things on their own. They have to queue up and stuff like that. So 7 to 12 years old is a time whereby they start to form their certain habits and attitude towards money as well. So we want to help them along, right, in this aspect, to help them to build the right approach towards money. And how do we do that? 3 aspects. They're all interrelated, but let's start with delayed gratification. Now, this concept of delayed gratification is actually based on an experiment done in the US in 1970s. It's called marshmallow experiment. I believe a lot of us would have heard about it. Am I right? Am I right? Yeah, so let me just briefly explain what is the experiment about. In 1970, by Stanford University, they selected a group of children aged between 3 to 6 years old, and they put them into the room individually. And what happened here is that they tell the kid, every one of them separately, and say that, no, if you stay in the room, I'm going to leave some marshmallow on the table or pretzel on the table. If you refrain from consuming them, for next 15 minutes, you get more, you get double. So some of the children go ahead and then start to gobble up, enjoy it, because why? They couldn't resist it. Some children practice distraction, cover their eyes, sleep on the table, sing songs, start to tell story to themselves to distract themselves from the gratification right in front of their eyes. So what happened? Study goes that, those people that refrain, that means they delay their gratification to have more of the marshmallow later, down the road in their life, 18 years later, the experiment tracked how were they doing in their life. And they realized one thing, okay? A lot of them, in fact, all of them, of those who be able to delay their gratification, do better in their study, in their relationship, in their finance, etc., as versus the other group. So it is important at this juncture to teach our kids about delayed gratification so that they know that by not just play, but you learn to discipline yourself to doing the right thing, the important thing now, so that later when you enjoy, you can enjoy it wholeheartedly, and that builds a certain habit towards also managing money. And with that, right, you give them a goal. When they have a goal, they have the purpose of saving. And when they know that we're given a pocket money to buy food in the canteen, right, what will happen? They will then say that, hey, I need to buy that book. I need to buy that mechanical pencil. But mommy, daddy tells me that it's going to come out from my allowance every day or every month. And then they're going to do what? They're going to practice some saving on their own. And then with that, right, they will practice to put aside certain amount of money and over time build up the money before spending the rest, and then be able to buy whatever they need or they want. Of course, we guided supervision. Why? Because you would like to explain to them why so. Why do you want to buy this? And what's the motivation behind, so that you help them to be able to be in tune to the need of saving. Now, with these two in place, can I say this? Budgeting is already information. Because why? Because when you learn to save, you learn to control your spending, and you learn to able to do a purpose, a reason, a motivation, and in financial planning called SMART goal, you are actually doing a budgeting, right? So they go all hand in hand. And building on this premise that we have established for the kids, right? Here comes, they will graduate and they will move on to secondary school. So secondary school here, 13 to 16 age, whereby more autonomy will be given, perhaps more allowance because of the expenses required, right? But the fact that they grew up in the environment, in the world that's relatively different from ours, more innovation, more savvy with digital devices. So we hope we want to teach them about smart consumption. And what do I mean by that? Making wise choices, meaning they do a comparison, help them to be resourceful, perhaps go online to compare prices before making a informed decision to buy certain things. Payment, because of the infrastructure, the technological infrastructure, payment sometimes goes cashless, am I right? So EasyLink, allow them the chance to try out the EasyLink to pay for themselves and see the money deducting and realize that money is a limited resources. Yes? And beyond that, investment and insurance. Now, investment insurance is a big topic, all right? So therefore, through games, in my opinion, through games like, for example, Monopoly, whereby they learn that by buying certain things, investing in certain things, parking money in certain products or assets, right, it may be able to generate certain returns. So through games, we reinforce the idea of this concept. At the same time, explain, very importantly, explain to them, if you see a good story about investment, explain to them. When you play a game like this, when they lose or win, they explain to them the risk element be involved, as well as for insurance. And finally, scam, right? We heard of so many stories about scam. Am I right to say that? So we don't want our kids to. We want our kids to be able to be savvy, at the same time exercise due care. So with that, right, we want to teach them through story, maybe from the newspaper, and then dissect with them and understand what are the risk element involved when you buy things over the internet. With who are you transacting with? Do you really know that you're buying the things will certainly be delivered? So these are the things now that we should consider, right? And helping our kids to be more savvy in this age, right? So what I have brought you through, right, is that three groups, age group of children. There'll be more installed. I will not bother you down with more information on this, right? In fact, I will share with you right after this sharing session, Q&A session, right? More resources, more programs for you to leverage on so that you could go further and learn more about these topics, right? So before I go on into the Q&A, can I invite my colleague, Swee Chu, who is the panelist, to moderate the session. Over to you, Swee Chu.
Thank you. Thank you, Joseph. That was interesting overview. And we now have quite a number of parents who are in the session right now. Before we go to Slido, and parents, Slido, it's the platform where we will be taking your questions. So please do scan this QR code and you can key in your questions and we will answer them as much as possible. If you're having trouble scanning a QR code because you're on a mobile phone, then you can also type a comment in the Facebook page. My colleague will make sure that that question get transferred into Slido. I looked at Slido earlier. We already have a dozen over questions, but before we get there, I would like to introduce another member of our panel this afternoon, our guest, Norman Ang. Norman is an experienced counselor dealing with youth and children. So let us welcome Norman. Norman, hi, good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Thank you for welcoming me and inviting me.
Yeah, okay. Norman, you want to share with us a little bit about your professional background?
Yes, I currently have my own private counseling practice, and I'm also a father of 2 young adults.
Okay, great. So you have a lot of experience working with people from different segments on a one-on-one basis. Now, before we go to Slido, I thought I would like to ask my 2 panel members 1 or 2 questions, and then we get warmed up before we get started. So the question I have in mind is this: from your viewpoint as parents, do you think that we should let our children grow up a bit more and pick up the financial learnings by themselves? They should have fun as children, some will argue. After all, they are already very stressed out in school. Now, I'm going to turn to Joseph. Joseph,
Hi.
as a parent of a young daughter, what would you say to that question?
I think it's in line with what I shared earlier. From 3 to 6 years old, right? I believe the high supervision is required here to help them to appreciate the priority, the value of money before they move on, and we give them more autonomy in terms of managing their own money. I grew up in the environment in the no room, as in the rented room, right, in Outram Park. And my concept about money, I learned it from my parents, all right? And they didn't talk to us about money, but like what I mentioned, they insulate us from the topic. Why? Because they think we're too young. But when we look at how will they live their life, how do they save on money so that they provide for us, that's something for me to take away. And with the story they share with me, right, that helps me to develop my idea about value of money. So parents, do talk to your children about money. Very, very important to help them in their journey.
All right, thanks, Joseph. Norman, you have anything to add? What's your view?
Yes, I agree with Joseph. Values should be taught by us as parents. Yeah, and you know, the children will learn from the external themselves. Yeah, so that's why it's very important we teach them at home. It's our responsibility.
Yep.
Great. Right. So I think now we are ready to take on the questions. Over the next 40 minutes or so, we will attempt to answer as many questions as we can. That's already in Slido. So my colleague is going to switch over to Slido, and we're going to see live now the questions that have already been keyed in.
Wow.
Okay, great. So these are the live questions that are on Slido. And I'm looking at the first one, the top one, by Hui Miang. But before I read out that question, I want to just repeat again the QR code you see on the left side. It allows you to enter into Slido to key in the questions should you have any questions. So we encourage you to keep putting in the questions, or you can type slido.com and join the Slido using the 3 numeral code 328160. So the first question I have here is, I have a 10-year-old and a 20-year-old. How to reprogram and convince my 20-year-old to do forced savings when she starts earning income, especially if she's going to be under the influence of social media and spending and consumerism. So I guess this question has to do with an older child, maybe no opportunity to impart the financial values at a younger age. How can you reprogram this older child? So I'm going to look to Norman. Norman, perhaps you can help us out with this first question. An older child, how are you going to help to reprogram a value system?
Yeah, this question is quite comical, right? Because when you say reprogram, it sounds like a computer we can reprogram. And don't all of us wish we could do that?
That's true.
Yeah, but to be honest, my personal opinion is that if we started training them young, the values will be there and it'll be more consistent. Once they reach this age, it's not easy to change them, right? We need to treat them like an adult already.
Yep.
We can talk to them and hopefully let's not nag, right? That's not helpful. Yeah, and tell us about, you know, the pros and cons about what's the reason we have certain values that we want them to follow.
I agree with you, Norman. Habits, when developed, are hard to break. That's why breaking habits is so difficult and challenging. And it's not impossible. I guess if you work at it, the discipline approach, you keep seeing the positive of it. It can work. How about you, Joseph? Do you have anything you want to add on?
Well, I would like to appreciate Hui Myung's question. I think that is a very real question because a lot of us are busy as parents. So sometimes, you know, by the time we realize the kids are already growing up, am I right to say that? So they're in their 20s. So how we can then help them in the journey, to continue this journey? I thought that's a very interesting and challenging question. Why? Because at this juncture, they would already form their impression. How do they value money? I think, like I agree with Norman, that you discuss with them, understand their point of view, and then correlate it back to the importance of money so that they be self-motivated, because they've seen a lot of things about how the spending results in certain consequences. So I thought that would be very, very helpful. Yeah.
Thank you, Joseph and Norman. We are just getting started, right?
Yep.
So we have 16 more questions as I see on slide.
Hey, wonderful.
The next question. My child just started working part-time at McDonald's, and he will be spending his salary as usual to places like Starbucks, buying Lego toys, and etc. How to let the child know that saving is important? Now, before I tackle this question to my panelists, perhaps I'd just like to maybe explain a little bit that a child started working part-time, likely that this child is a little bit older. I think in Singapore, there is a legal age for employment. Usually, I think it has to be at least 16. So I'm assuming that this child is a little bit older, maybe a bit on the fringe of the groups that Joseph referred to earlier. But nonetheless, I think it's an important question. It's also related to the first one. Perhaps I want to lean to Joseph to share his wisdom here about this example, this question.
A few cents of my thoughts. In my opinion, right, part-time is a good place to learn about the fact that you need to work for the money. I'm not suggesting that the fact that you do not upgrade yourself, but what I'm saying is that at least for the taste as a part-time, for a start for a child to learn that, you know, money don't come like you know, Doraemon, a magic pocket, where when I ask my daddy, they always, you know, have money coming out from their pockets, and where did they come from? So this will help them to understand, you know, in real world, you have to work for it. And with that, right, you learn to manage it, because when they receive their pay, they know that this is the amount of money that they have. Then they would treasure it and know how they're more motivated to manage it. Yeah.
Great, thanks, Joseph.
You're welcome.
Right, I'm going to change the pace a little bit. I'm now looking at the fourth question. Actually, I don't know how and where to start. Please advise. So hopefully this parent was watching the first 15 minutes of the presentation.
Right.
Joseph had given quite a bit of insights. But don't fret, there will be workshops that Joseph will tell you how to sign up to do the makeup learning if you haven't. Perhaps I want to look to Norman. Norman, being an experienced counselor, talking to youths and families, a variety of life topics, may have something you want to share about where and how to get started on financial literacy. Very briefly, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, as Joseph has already shared earlier, the benefits of training them early and at the different life stages. Yeah, so start early.
Okay, so the life stages that Norman was referring to was preschool, right? So there was this prior learning about needs and wants, and then primary school where they are starting to deal with money for the first time, buying things, spending their money, That's where a bit of savings before spending and some budgeting, and then finally when they get to the secondary school stage, where they're going to be much older, and the importance of things like investments, insurance, and also digital payments, and finally scams. So those are the areas that Joseph had touched on earlier. So I'm now going back and looking at the third question here: how to enlighten my only child in primary 4 about studying better and learning more, need not have to use much money, avoid materialistics and money temptations. Okay, so this is not really a financial literacy question per se, but one as to, I guess, about diligence and values. Very quickly, two of you, Joseph and Norman, do you have anything you want to share on this front?
In my opinion, right, Norman, allow me to jump in here. In my opinion, should look at it in the holistic development of a child rather than compartmentalize it. The issue here is that when we compartmentalize it, right, there's some behavior actually will spill over. So if you look at it holistically and say, how do I hope the child to become, right, rather than what I wish I want it to be the way, it helps the child to flourish in their own development. So in my opinion, it's fine to start young, right, to learn more about values, and then gradually, not necessarily using materialistic items to bring about certain results.
Norman, you have anything you want to add?
Yes. Bear in mind that it's not just about financial literacy, right?
Yep.
It's important to take care of our physical health, our mental health, etc. Yeah, everything needs to. All these priorities are important, and we cannot make one more important than the other.
Yep, exactly. Yeah, I think that's a very good point. Sometimes we tend to get so compartmentalized and say, okay, so now we are teaching children about money, so we let's focus on that. But actually, it's a much more holistic thing. Okay, then the next question, it's I'm looking further down the screen. How to teach my son on the importance of money and to spend wisely instead of lavishly? Again, this is another one relating to perhaps values as well. If I may summarize, it's how do you appreciate the value of things, and as human beings, we would like to compare, right? So no matter how much you tell your son about being thrifty, your son will compare with other people in school and so on and so forth. And sometimes they may say, my friends have it, why can't I? So how would you help this parent here, Joseph?
Personally, besides what I've shared earlier, right, I think it's important to once in a while, even for holiday, right, bring them for a tour to certain places, like maybe third world country, a place that developing country, to see how children are living their life, to expose them to shows like maybe on YouTube, right? I remember coming across this show whereby these two siblings, sisters, right, got to climb down the mountain to go to school, walk on highway, 3 hours to reach a school. And all they have for breakfast was a bowl of white rice. And they share among themselves and also their small little brother who is living in the box up in the mountain. So that was very impactful for my daughter when they look at it and said, hey, actually, there's something that we should value what we have. And when that happens, right, learning take place, and then that translate into how they also will take care of their finances.
Great, thanks, Joseph. And I totally agree with you. I remember in one of my previous workplace, which is a social service organization, my colleague who's a social worker actually makes it a point to take her children on social work holidays. So it's holidays nearby country whereby they actually do good in a community in order to impart to the children excuse me, the value of sharing and charity.
Yeah.
Norman, you have anything you want to add?
Yeah, I think one interesting way I would like to suggest is, on every Sunday in the newspaper, the Sunday Times, I think under the money section, they interview people and about how they got to where they are and how they spend money, what's the value of money to them, you know. And one interesting part that I like to look at is how were they brought up. Yeah, so I think that's a good way to teach our children by telling them about, maybe letting them read about that kind of story.
Yeah, great, Norman. It's the invest section. It's the
Yeah, that's
invest
right.
section on the Sunday
Mm.
Times. The current director, its editor is Wee Boon, and they cover different topics about financial money management. But there will always be an interview of someone successful, you know, an entrepreneur or company director. And one of the questions, obviously, is their attitudes and their money values when they were younger. And I agree with you. It's a great source of inspiration. And if your children are too young to read, then perhaps it's useful to relate the story to them or discuss these stories at lunchtime Sunday. Great. All right. So moving on, questions getting a little bit more challenging. One about the grandparents, right? So I'm trying to encourage my children to be thrifty, but I guess grandparents, being grandparents, will always give extra pocket money on the side. What can I do? My obvious answer to that question would be talk to the grandparents, share with them your educational methodology or what you're trying to achieve with the children, and get them on board. But I'm assuming that the parent who asked this question probably already tried that and was not very successful. So let me look to my two panelists with young kids and older kids. What was your journey like? Maybe you want to share some pearls of wisdom.
Personally, my parents were very strict, right? So I'm a pretty naughty boy when I was young. So I get caned, lah, you know. So with that, right, then I realized that when my parents see their grandchildren, they really pamper them. So I asked, you know, how come the treatment is a bit different? Why is it during that time, you know, you discipline me so much? So the explanation is that I'm afraid that, you know, you may turn the other way and learn something bad habits or mix with wrong people and stuff like that. So I take the opportunity to explain, you know, likewise, you know, same thing, you know, that's also my concern, and I solicit their help. I say, could you help me with that? I mean, it's good to pamper them, give them what they want, but also to help me to develop their character as well towards the money sense. So I thought that's helpful, heart-to-heart talk, yeah.
I heard from another source, one parent who say that, you know, actually encourage the child to save the extra pocket money separately.
Yep.
And then to encourage the child to be grateful, to be thankful to our elders. You know, there's a Chinese saying about remembering the source of where the water came from. And then on the grandparents' birthday or Father's Day or Mother's Day, to use that pocket money to buy something meaningful. So that's also another way to sort of reframe or to redirect the issue into something teachable and something.
Agree.
Yeah.
Agree.
Let's take on the next question about cashless. Schools are mostly cashless now. Wow, don't I know, right? How do we teach children money sense when there is no physical money involved? So this is a very real challenge. So how do we teach values which in the old days were not digital, not dealing with digital stuff, but in today is mostly digital. How do we connect them? Can I look to maybe Norman to share some light there? Norman, you have older children, right? Yeah.
Yeah, so my suggestion is, it's true. Nowadays, we are going cashless.
Yeah.
So, but we can still try to make it concrete. So if we can get our children to teach our children to budget, right? So make sure the amount that is in, for example, their ATM card is similar to what is in our in their Excel spreadsheet, right? Yeah, money in, money out. Make sure they monitor. Yeah, so that's one way to make it concrete.
Great, yeah. So I think one of my colleagues, and in fact is in our also learning materials that Joseph will share later, it's to basically use some form of tokens, playtime tokens or some kind of tokens to actually bring it back to more of the old school physical, so that they are able to see and feel the money. It's true that we tend to spend digital money more easily. In fact, it's painless. But if we have to count pieces of notes that we take out of our wallet, it can be quite painful. So that's another to do that. Joseph, anything you want to add? You have young kids, right?
Well, in my opinion, right, I agree with what you just mentioned, right? The cashless, right? In fact, this issue is not just restricted to children. Do you realize that even adults having a bit of problem with that? So I think it's very important that we mentor the way we do it. Bring in the child when we do some budgeting, get them involved to see the actual money is transacted. Don't just look at the mode of transfer, but to look at the value that's been transacted, so that they know their pocket money is being affected, daddy, mommy's saving is being affected, and then they could feel the impact. I think that will help to also to bring in the importance of MoneySense. Yeah. Great.
So the next question is about allowance. How to decide how much allowance to give? Is there a recommended percentage? I think it depends also on the age of the child. Some younger kids, some parents may just give specific money, canteen money, I like to say, whereby the kid will spend the money during canteen break to buy lunch. It's a bit difficult to tell the kid to save canteen money, because then the kid is going to wonder, do I eat lunch or do I save? So I think for older kids, some parents give a little bit more money so that they can manage for the week or even manage for the day for a variety of purposes. I think that's where they can practice a little bit of budgeting. And in terms of the recommended percentage, I would say it really varies because these are children that we are talking about. But maybe I turn to my panelists, Joseph and Norman. Maybe they have something to share. Joseph?
I think on the just for a general benchmark, right? Spending probably would be about 50 to 60%, whereas for saving, let's look at 20 to 30, and then sharing 10 to start off with. But then again, I have to qualify what I have to caveat what I've shared. Why? Because it really depends on the child. If you think that the child is receptive to such practice, right, then it's easier to adjust later. Otherwise, when you become too lenient, later when you want to step up the savings, they find it very challenging, right? So these are the few challenges. One more thing I would like to share about is the saving part. My own personal experience, when I was a kid, they had this POSB stamp, whereby you buy that 50 cent, 10 cent, then you stick. Now, how do I save? Not from my pocket money. I go back and say, Mommy, I need $1 of extra money. Why? Because I need to buy stamp. So ended up, it defeats the purpose of the saving practice. Is rather than I exercising, put aside my money, I get extra money. So I thought that for parents to consider, think about the effect that you want to have it on your child. How are you going to help the child to save rather than giving the extra money and then helping to meet the target? Can they do it on their own? Can you encourage them to do it on their own? Yeah.
Great, thanks. I guess to the core of the question about specifically how much in dollars to give in allowance, I suspect one good way is to go and survey the school canteen, the school bookshop, to figure out how much does lunch cost, how much does the stuff that the school bookshop sells cost. And I think from there, you probably have a better gauge as to what's the consumption amount. Does your kid need to take public transport or take the school bus for which you pay? So different expenditure, you need to also check on it and not just use a lump sum number that you got from your friend, because your friend's child's school may be quite different. Yeah. Okay, moving on to the next question. What is a good age to let kids have their bank account and ATM cards? I think in Singapore, you need to be of a certain age in order to open a bank account, but I think you can open a bank account together with your parents, if I'm not wrong. I'm looking to Joseph with a young daughter. You probably have a better idea to answer this question.
Well, like what I mentioned, when they join the primary school, right, they start buying food and stuff like that. So they're already in contact with money, our ATM cards and stuff like that. The important thing is to control the amount and monitor it, if possible, right? Review with them weekly, monthly to understand where the money goes, so that they felt accountable for what they have done. Not so much on being watching over their shoulder all the time, but to encourage, build confidence to how are they going to manage their money. So I think it's fine to start maybe in primary school. That's in my opinion. In fact, I think the important thing is to have some control over it, and then gradually let them have more autonomy when you think they're more prepared.
Norman, you have older kids. When they were younger, did they have their own bank account and ATM cards?
No.
Okay.
I mean, so there's a joint account, right? Because the government sort of incentivizes to have this child development account. Yes, exactly. Right. Okay. Yeah. So, but I've mainly stashed all their, like for example, yearly ang pao money into the bank account. Yeah. But I didn't really turn over the ATM card to them and transfer the whole account to them until they're in their teens, their late teens. Okay. Yeah. When they start university, for example.
Okay. Norman touched on a very good point, and here I'm going to go off script and not look at the questions and ask a related question to that. I mean, you take the children's money and you stash it, in an account and all that. That leads me to a question commonly asked by parents: How do I teach my children investing? How do I expose my children to investing? And it's a chicken egg situation, because when they're too young, they can't have their own investment account. And so most likely you're going to invest on their behalf. So the stashing away of the money to invest. So then the question becomes accountability, right? Accountability. Do you actually account for the monies, the investment? How do you manage that? I mean, you don't want the child to think that daddy, mommy eat their money, and then disappear with it, with some Ponzi scheme or something like that. How would you do it? How would you do it? I'm looking to Norman.
Yeah. So basically, they in the beginning we have a joint account, right? Yeah. Then eventually it becomes their own account. Yeah.
Okay.
So it's everything is black and white,
Okay. Joseph, you have anything to share?
We try to get the child involved when we go to the bank, when we do deposits with their money, so that they can visibly see what's going on, right? And they would look at the passbook to see how much they have. In fact, recently, I don't mind sharing in public that we transfer quite a substantial amount of her money into CPF. And we did that, the fact that with the mind of the compounding effect from the interest rate. So, but we be very clear with them. Then, mommy, daddy is taking this money and putting into this place called your CPF. There's an account, and then you could actually go online to show them, their statement. So that also give them the idea that money is being positioned in a certain place, and over time, as they watch every year, right, you see the interest earning, and they also help them to understand the returns. Investment returns.
Great. I think there are many ways to do it. Yes. Ultimately, I think accountability is important.
Correct.
And kids observe too. And accountability do take a bit of effort. So as parents, I think if you do that, then you need to work a bit harder to really tabulate and to show them maybe at the end of the year, what happened. And if you're investing their monies in stocks and securities, then do explain to them and show them, concretely how the company has performed and all that. It all adds up to that learning and also accountability. Okay, great.
Can I just add on one point regarding the ATM? Because it hits home so hard for me. The reason why is when I was first given my ATM card, right? That was in my secondary school. Now, I've saved up quite a fair bit buying the stamps, as you know, right? All the USB stamp and then the amount. Now, lo and behold, when I got my ATM card, the convenience without supervision depleted my money almost very quickly. Right. Every time I'll tell myself, hey, there's another few $100. Hey, there's another $100 left, another 50, another 20. And before I realized I spent everything. Yeah. And so that supervision is highly recommended, in my opinion.
Yeah, it's important. Yeah, you're right. Okay, the next one is not so much on financial literacy, but again, parenting values. My kids would ask me how much we earn. Should I be honest? Don't want him to think that he can simply spend as you wish. Again, kids are quite smart.
Yeah.
They'll look around at home and see what kind of home daddy, mommy, and we all live in. What cars we drive, or we even have a car. They'll be able to guess that maybe we are lower income, middle income, or higher income. But I always believe in honesty, and not to belittle the kids' curiosity or question. So I think honesty is important, but at the same time, how to manage that answer, I think it's also a valid question. Maybe I would turn to my two panelists, Joseph and Norman. Maybe Norman, you want to share your own views about this?
Yes, I agree. We should be honest, not just about income, but also our expenses.
Yes.
So that'll be give them an idea of how we manage our money, right? Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. You earn more, but you also spend more. So
Exactly.
that's where it is, right? Joseph?
I will also look at whether are they all prepared to have certain informations, because whatever that can help them to better their financial literacy journey, I think that's good. But otherwise, right, if they're not prepared, they're not able to handle this kind of information beyond just how much I'm being paid, then I guess we have to exercise special care on that.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, also you have to make sure that your books are okay to be shown. Otherwise, you open book and then they see the wrong things. Okay. So the next one is about spending. I'm afraid that if I control my kid spending too much, he may revenge spend. So it's related to what Joseph you mentioned just now, right?
Yeah.
About the supervision, kind of counterproductive. How do I strike a balance? I suppose supervision is important, especially at the beginning, right? I think you mentioned that the once the kid have an opportunity to touch their stashed away money, at least in the beginning, we should monitor and make them accountable. Show you the bank statement, what they spend on, and explain. I think that is good. Then the kid will also make it a point to be accountable for their spending. Okay, come to move on. Next question, money making. No, I'm going to move on. I'm going to take that question. Do you think that it's okay to give a credit card for a secondary school student for ease of transaction? If yes, could you advise any specific cards? Thank you. I think Joseph had qualified earlier. We do not make recommendations, so unfortunately, we will not be able to advise you specific cards to give to your children. But on this subject matter of debit credit card for older kids, easy transaction, I think it's a real question. There's a valid purpose behind it. I look to Joseph. Joseph, oh no, Joseph, you're younger kid. I look to Norman. Norman, you have older kids. Would you do that?
So regarding the debit or credit card, my suggestion is what Joseph mentioned earlier about supervision. Yeah, that's very important. And because of technology, we can also maybe try to put a limit on the daily spending so that they don't spend excessively. Yeah, and also because of the scam issues. Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Yeah, I think supervision is absolutely key. I think the parents have to also check the statements, and I don't discount the fact that there will be one month where there could be a problem. That's where I think a teachable moment to educate the child is quite important. Yeah. Okay, let me move on to the next question. Can you trust your parents or friends if they're asking you for money? Well, I think this one probably would be older child, not so much relevant for our workshop this afternoon. So I'll skip that question. How to develop a healthy relationship with money? Okay, that's a very, very open-ended question. Maybe I look to the two of you to just give a statement of opinion on this, and then we move on to the next question. Joseph?
Well, I look at
healthy.
Yes. Yeah. I look at it with this illustration, right? If you have a card and you have a bull, You make sure the bull is in front of the cart, right? A lot of us do not know how to manage because with the fact that we want a lot of money, but we don't exactly know the objective and the goal why. And we always find when we have the money, we just spend it and we find ways to spend it. So we develop a very unhealthy habit. So in my opinion is that very importantly, help the child to identify the goal, the reason, the motivation behind, such that they know that by working, by saving up, by investing, that is the cart that will then bring you to reach that goal, which is the bull that should be dragging the whole entire process. So that's how I will look at it. So the value of money. Yeah.
Norman?
Yeah, I think it's important that we all want to teach our children how hard it is to earn money, right? Yeah, so that's something we can tell them about, not just about how much we earn, but the number of hours we put into it and all that.
Okay, great, thanks. For me, I would like to share this statement by one of my more favorite financial advisor on media, Susie Orman. She always says, people first, then money, then the things money can buy. So the materialistic aspect of money is always the last, right? Money is in the middle because you need to have a constructive approach to managing money in order to afford to pay for the things in life. But overarching, we talked about holistic just now. The most important thing is relationship. It's about people. So we should always put front and center people, relationships first, and then looking at money, and then finally what the things money can buy. Okay, so that is a question on a healthy relationship. We are very quickly approaching the end of the hour. I have only time for one more question. So I'm looking down, and the next question talks about how to talk to the children about money and saving, how much allowance to give, what they should buy. Wow, so that is literally covering what we've been speaking about this whole afternoon. I don't think we have time for that. Maybe I'll look at the last question, which is my girl is not willing to use her saving to buy her own stuff. How can we convince her to spend her own money to buy her stuff? So I think for this parent, it's kind of the other way around. Maybe the girl is super thrifty. I think spending money is not wrong per se. I think it's the approach and how we spend it. How would you help or advise this parent, Joseph?
I think very importantly to identify the motivation. Like I always fall back on the motivation. Why are we doing what we are doing? Why are we asking her to use her own money for buying the thing that that she for that matter? What was the motivation? Are we trying to help her to learn the fact that there is a trade-off when you save, but when you wanted something in exchange, you have to forego certain of your saving to achieve that for her growth, or so it's a bit difficult to give a one solution kind of thing. But I would suggest that look at it and ask, is she on the right track in terms of financial literacy, financial habits? Is there anything that we should then help her to correct, improve, do better, do less?
Norman, how about you?
The first thing is about communication, right? It's important to understand what is the reason she does her own thing, and I think sometimes we also need to. If I were the parent, I also need to look at ourselves. Are we the ones that are, teaching her to be like that? Yeah, because it could be, she's learning something from us, and that's the reason she's insecure about it. I don't know.
Great. I guess at the end of the day, we've repeated this theme more than a few times, which is to be holistic in the way we approach money matters, financial literacy, and for older people, especially adults, we tend to have this mental bias in economics. We call mental accounting or mental buckets. So we have values that we attach to different buckets of money. You know, this bucket of money is spend money. This bucket of money is cannot touch money. This bucket of money is CPF money, that kind of thing. But actually, when it comes to money, it's a holistic approach. You need to look at resources from a total perspective. You need to save enough. You need to invest the savings and so on and so forth. You need to do a budget of all the monies that you have. So I think maybe even for younger kids, either through observation or maybe their own character, they could also develop this bias about different buckets of money. And I think if there's an opportunity to correct that bias when they were younger, it's a good thing actually, to let her see that actually money should be looked at as a holistic, or resources should be looked at as a holistic, in a holistic manner, and then do the budgeting and the spending and saving accordingly, right? So with that, I think we have just had enough time this afternoon to answer the questions. If there are some more questions actually that are not answered, my colleague Joseph will then tell you how to go about to get those questions answered. With that, I hand over the time to Joseph, our host.
Thank you, Swee Chu. Thank you, Norman. All right, very quickly, in continuation of our Q&A just now, right, like what I promised you, like we promised you, the end of the session, we're going to share with you useful tools and kits, am I right? So over here, if you look at the slides, you can actually scan in the QR code or even copy down the hyperlink. Over that website, we offer you activity kits for the 3 different age groups that I described earlier, so that you can have more interactive activities or learning activity with the child concerning money. Right, so I'll just take a few seconds here for you to just scan or copy down or take a picture of this. That's okay as well, right, for you to use it after this talk. And then at the same time, to follow up with today's topic, right, we also have lots and lots of programs or courses, workshop that's lined up, free and unbiased. Again, when you come, you don't need to pay. You are not required to buy any products. It's purely to share with you information and education and purposes concerning financial literacy. So you can visit us here with the link that's shown at the slides. Okay, sign up, find out whatever that's suitable for you. Can I describe to you? Basically, it's from cradle to grave. Whatever topic that concerning financials, you talk about retirement, talk about buying your first home, investment, etc., etc. Otherwise, right, like what Swee Chu has shared earlier, lots of questions came in today, exciting questions. Now, all these questions will be addressed in, will be reflected in the finlearn.sg over here, right? So you can actually go there and then keep a lookout for it. When it's ready, it will be shown there and your question will be reflected there. And for those who find some of this question interesting, can also participate as part of the community, right, for learning. Stay tuned with us, stay connected with us via these few avenues. Right, we have our Facebook, our Telegram, as well as Instagram. Right, so we hope to to update you new things that we are coming up with, or even topics that you could interest you. Otherwise, right, the session has come so quickly, 1 hour just passed. Right, we would like to also invite you to tell us some feedbacks. So on the left-hand side column, you see a QR code. Right, scan it in. Give us your feedback. If you think that we are good, let us know. We need your encouragement as well, am I right? So if you think that we can do more, do less, do the same, let us know. And also, just to highlight to you, there will be 2 podcasts. How many? 2 podcasts follow up on this topic that we shared today. It will be announced through our Facebook concerning the dates, and then you keep a lookout for it. It's a follow-up. We will address questions that probably be outstanding currently, not be able because of time constraint. We are unable to address them, or new question that we come across. Right. So look out for the podcast, 2 of them coming up in our Facebook. Otherwise, I would like to thank all of you for spending the 1 hour, valuable 1 hour of your time together. And we hope that the things that we shared has a value add to your child and yourself in terms of financial literacy journey. Thank you very much.